All right, if you are on the job hunt or you're trying to get back out there, you're trying to get back in that career, there is one tool that if you have and you have done it well, then it could very well get you that foot in the door to an interview and possibly land a job. And that is a resume. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through how to create a resume as well as some considerations that you should consider, what not to include, and how to make it sound just like you, not this robotic AI generated thing that is very common now. Now, resume writing is a skill, but luckily we do have that technology at our fingertips and we can use that to our advantage. And there are some things that you should be cautious about. I'll go over those as well. Hey there, I'm Melody Bose, your host of Jeans with the Blazer, a podcast about rewriting the rules of work and life. Let's begin with getting some things out of the way right off the bat with resumes. So let's start with the facts. First, yes, they are very important. You need a resume in order to get an interview and get a job, but I want you to think about a resume as a tool that's a part of the entire package, right? So companies and recruiters are looking at so much more than what's on paper if they have time. If your resume is one piece of the picture, the rest of that also can look like your social media presence, your website or portfolio if you have that in your industry, and even nuances like communication, like response time and how quickly you respond to an email, grammar or tone in an email. A brief story, I once lost a job opportunity because in my thank you email, I was basically told that like I was a shoo-in for the job. All of the hiring managers really liked me. And I was really excited, but I was like already just like seeing this play out. And in my thank you letter, I was so excited to, the next step and to accept this job that I didn't proofread my thank you letter, which is like, stupid mistake. Don't do that. I will repeat that because to proofread. But I was so excited I didn't think about it. And when I sent the thank you letter, I ended up not getting the job. And I was like, well, why? What happened? And they're like, we saw a typo in your thank you letter. And that was a reflection of, you and your work. And in summary of what they said, that's basically what they told me. And I was like, wow, if I had just taken that extra time to go over my work and proofread it, then, that wouldn't have happened. But everything happens for a reason. So we move forward. Now, in our increasingly digital age, or if you work in the digital media space, there's no reason why you shouldn't have digital literacy. So that's something that can separate you from a candidate that's almost identically qualified, that has identical experience with you. If you are lacking those skills, that could really hold you back. So technology is only going to get crazier. So the more you know, the more it helps you. And of course, other industries have some flexibility with this and not as strict. Like, for example, if you're a lawyer or a tomato farmer, you're not necessarily expected to like understand the nuances of having a good resume and whatnot, but we'll get to it. Don't worry. Another thing about resumes is human resources and recruiting firms are looking all the time for ways to streamline their processes. And unfortunately, looking at resumes is one of those processes that's getting automated. With AI and technology constantly evolving, this is a bit alarming. These technologies and these programs, because they're so new, they're not regulated. So companies will just put out programs and say they have this solution and do A, B, and C. And because there's no regulation on it, because we're all essentially on the same level playing field, there's no one to say like, hey, this doesn't work or this is buggy. It's just kind of accepted. And if that sounds scary, it absolutely is. But that's just the reality that we live in. So also, the more you know. So there is a chance that you could do everything quote unquote right on a resume, and it might not even be seen due to a fault that has nothing to do with you or your effort. So there's kind of that going against you. So if you're in a situation or you know someone who's applying for jobs and they're just like, I don't get it, like I'm not being seen, I'm not getting called for interviews. If that sounds weird, like, yeah, also the job market is a little crazy. It is a good time right now to be in the labor market, but with all of this technology kind of converging at the same time, it's kind of like the wild, wild west out there. So the likelihood of a human looking at your resume, taking that first pass, is getting less and less likely. Now, if a human does look at your resume, the average amount of time that they spend actually looking at the document, I hope you're sitting down for this, it's 7 seconds. And I think there's been even more recent studies that say it's even less than that, maybe 4, because our attention spans are shrinking when we don't have time. So we need to learn how to make those brief moments really, really count. So let's get into it. I know it's a pain, and anyone who is applying for jobs or has applied for jobs before knows that applying is a full-time job in of itself. So you really should take advantage of every possible trick in the book, so to say, and use that to your benefit. So we'll go over that today. Perfect. Glad you're here. All right, story time. So if you have a career fail or something that you would like to share on an upcoming episode of Jeans with the Blazer, send me an email, hello@jeanswiththeblazer.com, or send me a DM at jeanswiththeblazer on Instagram. And let's talk about it. I'll keep your name anonymous if you so choose. So early in my career, I was looking for another job, and a guy I was dating at the time, he worked for a recruiting firm. So that's part of the reason I have all the secrets, right? But he basically asked his boss, who was the owner of this recruiting firm, who was a very successful headhunter, he asked for a favor if he could look at my resume and give me feedback on it. So this was my first job. I've mentioned it in an earlier episode. But I didn't have much experience. I had a couple internships from college, and then I had my one job that I was in. So I emailed him my resume, and 2 days later, I got the document back, and it looked like it had been massacred. It was covered in red ink, and what he did, he had printed out my resume, taken literal red pen, like, school teacher style, and just bludgeoned it with comments, took a photocopy, and emailed it back to me. So that was pretty horrific and embarrassing, but I was actually really grateful that he took the time to do that, because I got all the facts straight from the source, straight from the expert, and that's what we're here for, to learn and to grow, right? After I swallowed my pride and I took a look at the resume to see the notes that he had so graciously given me, I noticed 3 things, and those have stuck with me throughout my entire career. They're super helpful. Okay, so everything that you include on your resume should more or less have one of 3 things: what you made, what you saved, and what you achieved. We're going to break that down. All right, I made a resource for this episode that takes all of this information and puts it together with examples and templates and ChatGPT prompts that you can use to help build your ideal resume that you can definitely check out in the episode details. Okay, and these are things that you should be thinking about before you even start to write your resume. So it's get a little pen and paper, get out your notes app on your phone, and just start jotting this down. So starting with save, and this applies to your previous experience, any other company that you've worked for, but save. Did you save company money? How much? If not money, did you save them any kind of time or resources? Write that down. Now, made. Did you make a company money? How much? Did you make anything better? Did you improve any processes or make anything more streamlined? Write that down. And achieved. What did you do? And most importantly, this applies to all 3, quantify. Let me give you an example. Most people have email operations leader in charge of company initiatives. That could be a line on a resume, right? Boring. No, we don't want that. How about managed a department of 8 people as a team lead, produced 437 email campaigns with a year-over-year open and click-through rate that increased by 8%, which resulted in $45,000 in e-commerce sales. That can all be broken up in different lines, but you get the picture. You want to take something and expand on it, quantify it, and that paints such a clear picture of what you did and your day-to-day responsibilities than, managed a department team. Congratulations. Same job, same responsibilities, but you see them in 2 different ways. Quantify, 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 quantify. Okay, let's move on to some resume do's. So there are a bunch of different opinions on how to format your resume. Some people like to make it fancy by adding color, graphics, even, putting your photo or headshot on it. And I would say the efficacy of that in the past has depended on things like your industry. So for example, if you were an accountant, the recruiter is probably, they don't care that you have a really fancy, nice designed resume. A company is not going to be impressed by that if your responsibilities are in the accounting realm. Will it make your resume stand out? Yeah, sure, it might be a little more memorable, but if the skills and experience isn't there, then it honestly doesn't really matter. For jobs like graphic designers, that is a way that you can showcase your skills, almost like an extension of your portfolio. So I'd say go for it. That's extra. And just another kind of amping up of a document that you already have. But remember, with AI and technology, they don't care about fancy resumes and graphics and if it's beautifully designed. They're looking for one thing, well, multiple things, but the idea is that they're looking for keywords. So before you even write your resume, okay, so earlier you jotted down what you made, saved, and achieved in your previous experience. So now you are going to gather some keywords that we were going to pepper throughout our resume. And I'll give you an example. So let's say marketing. You're applying for a marketing type job. That could include keywords like user engagement, content creation, inbound marketing, SEO. Right? These are all things that might be related to a marketing job that you would be applying to. And if you have a hard time thinking of keywords, I got you. 2 things. Number 1, ask ChatGPT. Technology is there. Companies are using it and they're fighting back against us. So let's flip the script. Let's use technology to our benefit. So definitely use the resources that I give you to feed in those prompts to help extract those keywords to jot down some ideas. But another thing that you can use to your advantage is go on LinkedIn. Okay, go on LinkedIn, look up profiles of jobs or people in your network who have careers that are similar to the path that you want to go on. And literally look at their profile and copy the pieces of their profile that kind of jump out at you as things like, I could see myself doing that eventually, or that's what I want to do. Literally copy that, paste it into a Word doc. Now, we're not going to reuse that word for word because that would not be cool, but we're going to put it together as inspiration that 1, we can look at and see the patterns, or 2, take all of that after we've, explored the LinkedIn interface, and then we feed it to ChatGPT and say, pull out all of the patterns of keywords that you see related to this industry, if it's marketing or whatever. So there you go. And then once you have all of these keywords, once you have a list of things that you made, saved, and or achieved in previous experience, now we're going to pepper all of that in to create the resume. Okay, let's take it from the top. So typically you would want to start with your name, contact info, link to your website or portfolio if that's relevant, and your LinkedIn. Some people argue and say, I can put my Twitter or Instagram on there. I have personal feelings about putting your Instagram on there, unless you're in an influencer or media type thing. That might be a good idea if you're a journalist and you use Twitter, or X. Then you could put that on there as well if you use that to showcase your journalism. But just be really mindful about what kind of things you put on there, because you never know if someone's gonna scroll past your grid and find that photo that or photos that you do not want anyone to see. Okay, so when I say pepper your resume with these keywords, I don't mean just stuff them throughout your resume. You want to be really intentional with how you use these keywords, because there's also AI software that can detect a suspicious amount of keywords in there. So just be mindful. Don't overdo it. If you read it and it sounds crazy, like you're using the same keyword 50 times, tone it down a little. Next, some people say that this doesn't matter, but I see it as a way to pepper in more keywords, is a 1 to 2 sentence mission statement that summarizes what you are offering or your experience and what you are seeking. So if you do this, I would invite you to be very careful here, because if you apply for a job as a magazine editor or blog editor and you don't think about your mission statement and you say seeking a job in sales, immediately to the bottom of the pile. Not great. Also, I wanted to add here that you should 100% have multiple versions of your resumes. And I know this is a huge pain because it's like putting together a resume is already a beast. But again, this is one of those things where you'd want to maximize every possible advantage. If you have a job that you're applying to, tailor that resume to that job as close as you can without, lying about your experience. You want to keep that honest there. But also, like, how can you shape the verbiage in there to speak directly to that job? That increases your likelihood with AI and, human when they want to review it. Okay, after that, we have education. So any degrees that you have, if you're super, super early in your career, maybe if you haven't even got to college yet, you can put your high school diploma, but a bachelor's or master's or PhD or whatever can, replace that. But if you don't have a degree, don't panic, because we're at a point where, because there is a labor shortage in the US, hiring based off of skills is getting more and more popular. So you have that to your advantage. So if you don't have a degree, don't worry. You can add any relevant certifications, or like CPR, for example. If you're, aiming to be a nurse or in anything like that, just ask yourself if those skill sets, certifications, whatnot, are relevant to the job you're applying, and just kind of look closely at that, because if it's not necessary, then just leave it out. Less is more in the case of resumes. So next, we want to list your experience. Okay, got through all that. I would recommend, this is just my personal recommendation and based on feedback that I've received before, is one, you want to make it stupid easy for hiring managers, recruiters, companies to process the data on your resume, right? So if you make it difficult for their eyes to follow, like, where it is you worked, from how long, and then what, if that's all over the place, like, you want it to flow. So I would recommend 2 columns. On one side, list the name of the company, the position you had, and the month and through the month and the year of how long you worked there. On the other side, I would recommend to list kind of this in 2 parts. Key responsibilities, which is 2 to 3 bullet points of an overview of what you did, where you would also want to quantify wherever possible, like we talked about before. And this is where you would, as many cases as you can, use like power verbs like managed, led, supported. When you start with those words, that gets kind of right to the point of the meat, essentially, of what you did. So if you manage people, how much? If you were in charge of projects, list how many. Budgets, what was the budgets that you were in charge of, just to kind of paint that picture in a clear way to whoever's reading your resume. Okay, and then the second part to this is the key achievements. So this is where you want to quantify to the max. This is your rock star moment. This is your Woodstock. This is your time to show up and shine. List the highlight reel, the best of the things that you've done in your previous employment experience. So even if you come from something like a retail background, right, where you could put managed the floor storefront of Express, or you could quantify that and say that you managed $90,000 worth of inventory month over month. That is a made up number. I don't know, but you get the picture. Really paint a picture of what you did during your time there that can help tell that story about your experience and your background. And another thing too is, if you've ever put on any kind of event that you helped organize, you could share something like you increased foot traffic by X% during the time of this event. Of course, be able to back these things up or be able to speak intelligently about them. These are some of the things that I recommend putting in the key achievements that an employer or recruiter could pull out during your conversation with them. And that's your time to talk about that experience. Use that time to list all of the great accomplishments. So another thing is, people ask about length of resume, and the consensus is, if you're relatively new in your career, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years, then anything longer than a page is too long. Here's my take. You want to be clear and concise as much as possible. You want to be surgical with your words. Brevity is the key here with resumes. You don't want to overfluff. You don't want to tell a story. You don't want to narrate. You want to be clear, numbers, quantify, this is what you did. But if you try to pigeonhole yourself into forcing your resume to be in one page, and you're making the font like size 6 because you want to get it all in one page, don't do that. Say what you need to say. If it spills onto 2 pages, that's fine. I mean, especially if you've job hopped before, you might have a lot of experience. You don't want to minimize that because like that's experience that you want to list, right? You want to talk about that. So if you do have it on more than one page, be sure to at the bottom of the page say like continued on next page so that whoever's looking through your resume knows that there's another part to it so they don't miss that. Pro tip right there. But a page can be enough. So I would say shoot for that. Of course, you want to order everything from most recent to the very earliest thing that you've done. And if you do have a second page or you do have some extra room there, you can put skills and programs that you're proficient in. Next point, do not lie about any of these. If you do not hablar español, do not put on your resume that you habla español, okay? French is my first language. It is my native language. And I don't even put that on my resume because it's broken and it's more like conversational. I would never use that in a professional setting or see that as useful. The last thing you want is to get in front of an interviewer and, you know, they habla español and then you don't get the job because of an oversight because you wanted to, you know, seem like you were more proficient in other things and be competitive. Don't do that. Be you, be honest. Now, I say that with a caveat because you can embellish, and you should. So embellish, but don't lie. If you increased sales by like, you know, 4.85%, you can round it up to 5%. But, you know, don't round it up to like 20%, especially if you're dealing with like, you know, hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars where like 1 or 2 percentage points can make a big impact. Really take a look at what you've done and see like what can you kind of amp up a little bit that you can speak intelligently to and you know that you could, you know, accomplish this. But be honest, be realistic. And if you try to inflate your resume too much, AI programs and people will be able to tell. So don't do that. And then, of course, proofread. Proofread. Ask ChatGPT to proofread. Ask your mom, your best friend, your dog to proofread. Especially if you have something on your resume like attention to detail as a skill and you have a typo, then that doesn't look good. And then, of course, my favorite, avoid jargon. We don't need jargon. Be clear. Clear is always better than clever in the case of resumes. And then, of course, like, have a professional email. You don't want to be Disco SpongeBob 82. It just doesn't look right, and you might be the butt of, you know, a lot of jokes by the hiring manager or the company. And, you know, just to kind of share the space with you here, if you're still using your college resume or something, and it's been many years, I used my college resume for, you know, to apply for my first job before I updated it. But before that, this is so cringy. So my email before that was mtvisnotmusic@yahoo.com. It's no longer active, so don't even try to email it. But I thought it was so edgy. Have a professional email. Just do it. And then at the very bottom of the page, end with your contact info. I would even say if you have room in the footer of every page, have your contact info because that's obviously the most important part, right? Someone reads your resume, they want to reach out to you. Make it easy for them. Make it just as painless as possible. And I have always said references are available upon request. I just, you know, don't want, you know, random companies calling references if it doesn't get that far or whatever. Also, I wouldn't want to like have a company waste someone else's time that, you know, they don't need to do that. So references available upon request. Okay, and final thing is cover letters. There are a lot of questions about cover letters and how they pair with resumes, and there are some polarizing opinions on this too. I've heard hiring managers say that they don't even read cover letters. They just skip straight to the resume because they don't have time, or others take it very seriously. If you're asked for a cover letter, just create one. I know it's an extra step that takes extra time, but it depends on who you get, and you don't want to be that person that's like, oh, they're not going to care about it, and they end up caring about it. So just do it. Tweak it for each job. Use ChatGPT. Do it. All right. So if you have any questions about this, then please let me know. Send me a DM at Jeans with the Blazer on Instagram or hello@jeanswiththeblazer via email. But we're going to end on Jargon Jar. Okay, and this is opening the kimono. I've I've actually never heard anyone say this, but I've read about it, and I think I heard about it on like a TV show or something. It basically means like to reveal confidential information or internal processes within an organization. And an example for that is, someone talking to their colleagues saying, we're not ready to fully open the kimono yet, but here's a preview of our roadmap. And I don't even think I need to explain why, just this is gross, culturally insensitive, and, just creepy. So here's some other suggestions. Here's a transparent look at what we're working with. Let's walk you through behind the scenes, and here's what we can share at this stage. None of that was creepy. All right, that's it for this week. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please don't forget to give it a review, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. That's a wrap on this episode of Jeans with a Blazer. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, a mindset shift, or just the push you needed, do me a favor. Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Leave a review wherever you enjoy your podcasts. It helps more people find it, and it keeps these conversations going. And I love hearing from you. Follow @Jeans with a Blazer and tag me with your biggest takeaways, your latest wins, or just tell me what topics you want to hear about next. See you next time.